So welcome to the channel, this tactical intellectual channel. As you can see by the name of this video presentation, the topic of discussion will be Russia. We're going to speak about the original populations who migrated into the landmass known as Russia. We're going to talk about the customs that they brought and created. And I also don't want to forget about the traditions that they brought into Russia and created while being in Russia for several millennia before other people, paler people, migrated into the area. So basically whatever I can think of that pertains to the original people and everything that they spawned and created, I will discuss in this video series. But today is the foundation. If you are just joining me for the first time, I like to do something I call the show and prove method to give a sample or an example of how I operate on this channel. I would make a claim that goes something like this. Early Europe and Asia had a lot of overlap. They lived and roamed wherever it pleased them to. There were no borders, so you had groups that we saw in Europe, they were in Asia, and groups that were in Asia were in Europe. I would then introduce the book and author. For example, I would say Environment, Race, and Migration by Griffith Taylor, and then I would go to the page, which is page 178. I would then go to the paragraph, read entire paragraph or sentence that backs up my claim. In this instance, I would start here where it says the Great Central, and I would go ahead and read. The Great Central Wedge of Alpine peoples is connected with the Central peoples of Asia. Though the common practice of separating Europe and Asia has hidden the close continuity. The main body of Alpine peoples are of moderate stature, rather dark, with brown or black hair. Okay, so you get the picture. Not only do you get the picture, but you also know now that Europe and Asia has close continuity between one another. Even though there's a practice that's common now of separating the two land masses or areas. So there's a book source that I have utilized a lot because I like the source, and it actually came out in the 1940s. It's J.A. Rogers' book called Sex and Race Volume 1. We're going to check out chapter 16. It's actually dealing with miscegenation, but we're not going to go that far yet. We're dealing with the surface right now, the step 1. And we're going to look at the part entitled European Russia and Poland. It says that a prehistoric Negro race also lived in Russia is highly probable. Statuettes of the Grimaldi type have been found at Gagarmo on the upper Don River. Professor Dixon in the Racial History of Man said that the early Negro type could be discerned in eastern Russia as late as the Middle Ages. So we're going to stop right here. Now, as you can see on the screen, here's an image of the Don River just to give you a good idea of where it's located at. When it comes to the exact city, Gargamo, I don't know where that's at in modern day, but here's the Wikipedia search right there. So I'll have that exact location later on, but let's go ahead and go back to this right here. Now, J.A. Rogers published this book in 1940, but there was no doubt that in the mind of J.A. Rogers and his cohorts and associates that they were discussing this before 1940, 1930s, 1920s, perhaps. So many in 2024 will wonder, can this be proven? The doubters will be like, you can't prove that. I beg to differ. See, J.A. Rogers had this information back then, so I'm just revisiting this and I'm gonna draw from it. So the claim is that, okay, there were a Grimaldi Negro type of people who lived in Russia on the Don River, actually the upper portions of the Don River, and they lived from prehistoric times all the way to the Middle Ages. Folks want to know, can you prove that? My reply is certainly. This is easy work, just another day at the office. So before we proceed, I have to put you on alert to something. YouTube is full of people who are adherents to obscurantism. As you can see from that slide here, obscurantism is the practice of deliberately preventing the facts or full details of something from becoming known. So really, I should have used the word obscurantist, which is basically a person who deliberately prevents the facts or full details of something becoming known or from becoming known. Here's an example of what an obscurantist is. This little punk bi, as Little John would say, is on my channel here. This account right there with 3 subscribers is clearly a sock puppet account. Can't even use your own original account, but check out what he says right here. Notice the pattern that he indulges in. This fool is like going around on my German, my what's your types, and my Dutch videos, just disrespecting my platform, even if I'm being polite to the prick. But hey, it's like disrespecting the bar owner who's also the bartender, and you thinking that you're gonna receive some type of courtesy even though you pay for a drink, but you're disrespecting and just disregarding house rules. You're gonna get kicked out, rightfully so. Now let's see what he done to get kicked out and blocked. It's one thing to have questions that need to be answered, but when you are operating in bad faith, nothing's gonna get done. Now I quote Roland Dixon a lot on this platform here, and this guy's saying that I'm misreading old text and taking it out of context and everything. But then you admitted that Dixon had a flawed taxonomy. So what is it, man? You're all over the place, man. Be consistent, fool. So as you see, this jerk off is clearly in the mood to throw shots. So look at what he says right here. He's saying that I'm basically clearly distorting Dixon's work, and it is indisputable to anyone who's read him. Then he says that I continue to completely misinterpret Dixon. He says that I say that 6 out of 8 of Dixon's types were exclusively Negroid or melanated, and Dixon himself would not agree with that assertion or claim by me. So then he, keep in mind, we're in the Dutch and German video, so then he started talking about, all right, what types do I think that whites and Asians fall under? Bro, we're not even talking about Asians, man. I got 3 videos dedicated to Asians. But hey, a prick punk bi would be a prick punk bi. So now let's look at the parting shot from an obscurantist. Not a good one at that, but let's look at what he says. He tells me that I am applying types like Dixon's proto-australoid to other authors' works when they were using the terms in completely different ways. So he says it seems like you haven't actually read these books, but have only found some cherry-picked passages you feel you can use. Folks, this is what we call projection here. So he claimed to have read the same sources that I present, but I really don't think he did, man, because if he did, he would not be speaking like this recklessly. That's what I'm saying. So what am I to believe when I hear somebody speak this recklessly and claim to have read the same sources that I've read and see what I am presenting, but goes totally contrary of what I am saying? Well, they're here to obfuscate. They are an obscurantist. Now I will do a video presentation on obscurantism and obscurantists later on, and how they're basically pseudo-intellectuals because they don't care about the facts. They just care about muddying the waters and presenting things in a sophisticated manner, but when it boils down to it, they're really saying nothing. Just a lot of word soup, word salad. But let's go ahead and get into the main point of the matter here. So we're going to segue back into the book, The Racial History of Man by Roland B. Dixon, and we're going to see this portion here, book 3 on Asia. And we're gonna see the introduction here. We're gonna read a little bit of that, and then we're gonna finally come to the crux of the matter. On page 241, the introduction, let's go ahead and drop down, and then we're gonna read this part here. The northern lowlands are at their southwestern end, a region of steppe and desert grasslands, and are continuous with the Great Plains of Russia, so that peoples have been free to move from one to the other. Asia here having a broad open gateway into Europe. So let's go ahead and go to page 242. It says, the narrower western portion, including Afghanistan, Baluchistan, Persia, Armenia, and Asia Minor, which is Anatolia, lies at an elevation of from 3 to 5,000 feet above the sea, is arid or even desert over large areas, meets Europe at the Balkan Peninsula at its western end, and there along the Persian Gulf comes directly down to the sea. The main takeaway is that these portions of Afghanistan, Baluchistan, basically the Indus River Valley, which is connected to the Near East, that part connects to Europe. So to reiterate, you can basically read it like this. The Indus River Valley meets Europe at the Balkan Peninsula at its western end, and there along the Persian Gulf comes directly down to the sea. Page 243 of the introduction reads, no authentic find of Paleolithic man has up to the present been made anywhere in the continent, and data even of Neolithic age are all but lacking. Yet the outlines of human distribution at a period roughly synchronous with the Neolithic period in Europe may, I think, be dimly seen. At this time, the southern and eastern borderlands from India around to Kamchatka seem to have been occupied in the main by a dolichocephalic, dark-skinned Negroid population, which was a blend in varying proportions of the Proto-Australoid and Proto-Negroid types. There is some evidence which leads us to believe that this Negroid population extended farther westward than India, along the shores of the Persian Gulf and the southern coast of Arabia, so being continuous with the great area held by similar peoples in Africa. Whether the Proto-Australoid type definitely preceded the Proto-Negroid throughout this whole region, we have as yet no means of knowing, although the distribution of the two types in Oceania seems to show that it did. At any rate, the Proto-Negroid type later came to dominate in the south, at least, and seems to have streamed through the southern borderlands eastward into the Pacific. In the eastern margin of the continent, this type does not seem ever to have become dominant. Nowhere, so far as can be seen, did these ancient Negroid peoples penetrate far into the greater plateau region, whose southern and eastern escarpments formed barriers which they rarely crossed. Although this blend of Proto-Australoid and Proto-Negroid types formed everywhere the fundamental basis of the population of the borderlands, two other types were also present. Probably the earliest of these was the Caspian, which at a very early period had spread throughout most of the northern lowland and had forced its way across the eastern plateaus to farther India and the eastern coast. Sweeping through Zungaria and over the upland, they came into China and Manchuria and passed by way of Korea into Japan, where their presence in Neolithic times has been recently established. Okay, so we're gonna stop here. So let's cut to the chase and address the main points. On 243 is saying this: the time period is the Neolithic period in Europe, and then it's saying that at this time the southern and eastern borderlands from India around to Kamchatka seem to have been occupied in the main by a dolichocephalic, dark-skinned Negroid population, which was a blend in varying proportions of the Proto-Australoid and Proto-Negroid types. Listen, there's no room for error there. It says what it says, man. How can you misconstrue or misinterpret or misread what Dixon is saying in his own book here? You really can't. This reeks of a lion Yamnayan person here. So on the screen before you is a map that I got off of the Absolute Siberia website. It's an article on Kamchatka, and as you can see, the highlighted red portion of the map is Kamchatka, the Kamchatka Peninsula. And we already have proof that they found remains of these Australo-Negro type people that was all over there. That in that area of Russia, that was the original people before other people start coming in. So of course, if you have a blend, you have the solo entities by themselves, meaning you had the regular different types of Negroes, and then you had the Australo Negroes. Because on this platform, I consider them, true to the name, Negro. They're just Negroes with straight hair. So let's examine this map again, and keep in mind on this platform 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 is not 999,888,777. That's not what 2 + 2 is. But just like reality, I mean, some people, when you ask them what 2 + 2 is anything other than 4. So keep that concept in mind, and let's make sense here. Let's not be spurious. I don't deal with spurious stuff, only to make an example of it, but I don't accept, co-sign, and teach falsehoods. And this is just making sense of things here. You see where Kamchatka is at. You see how large the Russian continent or country of Russia is. You see where it's at. All right, now in your mind's eye picture, okay, Africa, Europe, Russia, Asia, the Pacific Islands. Now on this platform, I love to utilize redundancies. I may have source number 1 and I may spin off into a topic on Asia. I may have that same source and speak on Europe, and I use that same source and I relate it or relay it back to Africa somewhere, or the Americas. I'm doing that here. You will see this in many different topics, and the other source that's talking about Negroes in Kamchatka. Now, with that in mind, Negroes in Kamchatka, think of, have this map in mind right there. All right, this is where 2 + 2 = 4 comes in, not millions, not 999 million. So if you have Negroes in this little far-flung area of Russia right there, this is like almost off the map. What is Germany? Germany is like walking across the street, What is Switzerland? Switzerland is nothing right there. What is Norway? Okay, Norway is like walking to your backyard. That area of Kamchatka is like crossing 2 streets or walking a block. When you look at Africa in the Near East, Northeast Africa, and all of that. So I mean, listen, it doesn't matter what race you want to belong to. It doesn't matter if you identify as black, white, Asian, Middle Eastern, whatever, man. Facts are facts. Evidence is evidence. You can ignore it if you want to, but don't get mad at me for disseminating the information. If you identify as white, don't get mad at me. Get mad at the people that came before you within your own group. Get mad at your father, your grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, your great-great-greats. Get mad at them, because it was them who fed you the fantasy, the feel-good story. Hey, come on now. You gotta, before you reply, you better investigate before you reply. That's all that I'm saying right there. I do welcome an inquiry or inquiries, but accusations of a bugged out agenda, I don't deal with that there. So the only agenda this platform has is telling the truth, backed by facts, of course, and then we can tell the real account of what actually happened. Again, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Hey, if someone wants to lash out and become livid over that fact, then that's something that's beyond me. I can't do anything about that. I'm just providing information here. So again, from India to Kamchatka, that means India point A, Kamchatka, that's the last stop on the train, and everything in between that was occupied by Negro people. So get mad in the car or rejoice, if you already knew this. I mean, you already have confirmation, more confirmation. If you are somebody who gets livid, hey, check yourself, think of the information, think of everything that you thought you knew, learn to relearn. That's going to help you out in the long run. Or continue the tradition that the people before you had of keeping a lie going. So from now on this platform, we will make depictions of the earliest people of Russia and Asia, them Ainu. Yeah, we're going to talk about them Ainu too, but we're going to show them properly depicted as dark skin or brownish, either medium or light brown or dark brown Negro people. That's what they were after all. I may have to end it here. I wanted to do something on the Ainu, but I'm probably gonna make a special spin-off presentation directly dedicated to the Ainu people. It's gonna be probably like a before and after, or then and now type of thing, and then explain the changes that took place between the people known as the Ainu and how the West likes to depict these people. I mean, we've all seen them. They think that that's like a long lost Nordic white type of tribe up there, but hey, the real Asiatic looking Ainu people, they're like, man, that's not the case. You guys are blowing that out of proportion. But we're gonna talk about the originality aspect of it. When I say originality, I'm talking about Negro element of it from the very beginnings. Let me give a sample of what I mean when I say from the beginning. Here I have some images that may not look like much. It may not look like I'm proving a point, but you see these images here. The first guy that's sitting down, he's actually from northern Japan. Here you can see him with the garb, the robe. You can see he is sitting on a fallen limb, and I mean, he looks mixed. No doubt he's brown skin, if not darker. Let's check out the next image. See this guy here sitting down? You can kind of see that Australo Negro and the conventional or ideal image of the Negro. Basically, you can see that blend of multiple different types of Negro peoples on these people's faces here. Now let's go ahead and go to the next image. These are two Ainu guys from Russia here. Now you can tell they're more made up of the Australo type of Negro person. Just look at them right there. I mean, they do have the dark skin again. I mean, did I mention that already? But that's more in line with a couple of sources. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and check out that source, and then we'll close everything out. This is taken from the book Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers, and it's talking about the Ainus. It's saying that the oldest known inhabitants of Japan are the Ainus, who appear to be nearer the Caucasian than any other race, but they also show signs of Negro and Mongolian admixture. So the second page just goes over their, I guess, racial features. It talks about how their nose is flattish, their mouths are wide and lips are thick, that type of thing. The hair is long and thick, coarse. Wavy hair is much prized. and one who has curly hair is said to be a person having the hair of the gods. Okay. It continues, it is this kind of hair which perhaps more than anything else indicates a distant Negro ancestry in them. Naturally curling hair may be set down as an almost sure index of Negro ancestry. So I want to start my conclusion off with an introduction, page 243 of Racial History of Man, and it says, at this time, the southern and eastern borderlands from India around to Kamchatka seem to have been occupied in the main by a dolichocephalic dark-skinned Negroid population, which was a blend in varying proportions of the Proto-Australoid and Proto-Negroid types. So you guys have to remember that before white people, Asian people, and all these other different types of people came on the scene several millennia, it was all melanated people, look like Wakanda. I'm just kidding with that part. I will expound on this in future presentations, but in the meantime, you guys take care.